Picture this, 5 a.m., the kind of darkness that feels heavy and permanent. I'm dead to the world inside my sleeping bag, dreaming of better days, when suddenly, boom, my entire world explodes into blinding white light. 3 high-powered tactical flashlights are searing my retinas. I can't see a thing, just the violent silhouette of figures looming over me, and my heart is hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, because all I hear is the crunch of heavy combat boots on the gravel of my own driveway. Radio static cuts through the crisp morning air like a jagged knife, drowning out the birds that should be singing, and I'm thinking I'm about to be dragged off to a black site. But then I hear it, "Pack it up, now, let's go," and as my eyes adjust to the assault, I realize these aren't cartels or black ops. They're 3 sheriff's deputies looking at me like I'm a meth head squatter. The smell of diesel fumes from the idling cruisers is choking me, burning my nose, and I'm scrambling out of my tent, half blind, shouting, "Officers, hold on. This is my property. I own this land," trying to find my voice through the adrenaline. That's when I see her. Standing behind the wall of uniforms, bathed in the red and blue strobe lights like some suburban Maleficent, is Victoria, Vicky Sterling. She's the HOA president of the neighboring Cedar Creek Heights, clutching her little clipboard like a holy scripture, wearing a smile so poisonous it could curdle milk, and looking at me with this triumphant, smug satisfaction because she actually called the cops on me for sleeping on my own damn ranch. She has no idea, standing there in her designer windbreaker, that inside my waterproof tackle box sits a stack of documents that are about to flip her entire reality upside down and make her lawyer up faster than she can say property values. My name is Mason Mace Albright. I'm 52, and 3 years ago I thought I had bought my freedom. I thought I had purchased an escape from the noise and the drama after watching cancer steal my wife, Eleanor, one agonizing day at a time. When I sold my electrical contracting firm, I took every cent of profit and slapped down a cashier's check for $340,000 to buy this 40-acre slice of Montana paradise, a place Eleanor used to dream about when the chemo got bad, describing the pine trees reflecting in the glass-calm water, the smell of wood smoke, the sound of kids cannonballing into a lake that belongs only to us. This land was supposed to be my sanctuary, a gorgeous 12-acre natural lake fed by a mountain stream that's been carving this valley for centuries. When I bought it from Old Man Miller, a rancher who had worked this dirt for 60 years, he shook my hand with calloused fingers and whispered, "Take care of her, son, she's quiet land." And the deed was ironclad. No easements, no shared access, no fine print. Just me and my grief and the silence. But then came the knock, barely 2 months after I closed the deal. I'm on my porch sipping black coffee when I hear the sharp, aggressive click-clack of heels on wood, sounding like a woodpecker with a vendetta. It was Victoria, 48 years old, looking like she stepped out of a catalog for people who yell at baristas, rolling up in her white Range Rover with the Cedar Creek HOA parking permit displayed like a diplomatic badge. "Mr. Albright," she purred, with that artificial sweetener voice that makes your teeth hurt. "I understand you're new, but we have procedures. The lake has always been available for our residents' recreation," and she slides this official-looking notice of violation across my railing. She's claiming that because Old Man Miller was a nice guy who didn't shoot people on sight, he created a prescriptive easement, and now my private lake is basically a community pool for her subdivision. I looked at her, steam rising from my mug, and I said, "Ma'am, I have the deed. This is private property. End of story." And her smile just shattered into shards of glass as she hissed, "We'll see about that. I know people," before clicking away back to her SUV. The next day, I'm at the county recorder's office with Betty, a clerk who has seen every scam since the Nixon administration, and we pull 40 years of records, dusty files that smell like old vanilla and bureaucracy. Betty pushes her glasses up her nose and says, "Honey, if there was an easement, it would be right here. This woman is selling you oceanfront property in Arizona," confirming that Old Man Miller never signed a damn thing. Just to be sure, I called Jake Miller, the old man's son, and asked him if the neighborhood ever had swimming rights, and he laughed so hard he started coughing, telling me, "Hell no. Dad let the search and rescue team train there twice a decade. That's it. This lady is living in a fantasy world." So, armed with the truth, I decided to test Victoria's little theory. I loaded up my truck and went camping on my own land, enjoying the golden hour as the sun dipped behind the peaks, until the silence was murdered by the slamming of car doors. 3 families, loaded down with coolers and kayaks, just waltzing onto my land like they owned the place, and when I confronted them, the lead dad looked at me and said, "Victoria said it was fine. We've been coming here for years." When I pressed him on exactly how many years, he mumbled, "Well, since last summer," proving that Victoria's decades of tradition was actually just 2 seasons of organized trespassing on an old man's land. I kicked them out, politely but firmly, and within 2 hours Victoria had launched the nuclear option on the Cedar Creek Facebook group, posting photos of crying children denied their historic swimming hole by the hostile new owner, racking up angry react emojis and comments calling me a monster. But while she was playing the victim online, I was playing 4D chess, because electricians like me, we live and die by documentation. One missed wire burns a house down, so I document everything. Jake Miller called me back a few days later with a bombshell. He found his dad's old journals, and it turns out Victoria tried this exact same scam in 2019, but old man Miller threatened to call the sheriff, and she vanished like smoke. This proved this isn't about community spirit. It's about a predator testing boundaries, seeing who will fold. She thought because I was a grieving widower, I'd be an easy mark, just a broken man she could bully into submission, but she was dead wrong. The war entered a new phase, a phase I like to call bureaucratic hell, because Victoria wasn't done. She filed a formal complaint with the County Planning Commission claiming I was operating an illegal commercial campground. Her evidence? Photos of my single, solitary tent, presented as if I was running a for-profit festival, dragging me into a mess of unpermitted transient accommodation violations. When Inspector Vance showed up, a guy who looked like he hadn't smiled since 1998, he took one look at my camping chair and my coffee pot and started laughing, literally shaking his head at the absurdity of it all. He walked the property, checked the zoning, and confirmed what I already knew. Agricultural zoning allows owner camping. I could build a castle if I wanted to, but then he dropped a nugget of gold, telling me, "This is the 3rd complaint from your HOA friend this year. Noise violations, water contamination. She's wasting taxpayer money." That's when I decided to turn my property into Fort Knox. I spent the weekend mounting high-definition, motion-activated, infrared trail cameras in every tree, camouflaged so well a squirrel wouldn't notice them. If Victoria wanted to play spy games, I was going to produce a documentary. Sunday night, my phone blows up with motion alerts, and I'm watching a live feed of Victoria herself hosting a midnight rave on my lake. 6 adults and 4 kids floating on inflatable flamingos, drinking wine, trespassing with an entitlement that was honestly breathtaking. The cameras caught everything. Faces, license plates, the brand of Chardonnay she was chugging, and the audio was crystal clear as she bragged, "He can't stop us if we come after dark." Over the next week, she escalated, literally bringing bolt cutters to my gate, snapping the lock with a metallic crack that echoed across the water like a gunshot, creating a permanent entrance for her little crime syndicate. Instead of running out there with a shotgun or screaming, I just compiled the footage, time-stamped, GPS coordinated, and saved it all to a hard drive labeled The Reckoning. Victoria, realizing I wasn't cracking, pivoted again, this time reinventing herself as an environmental crusader, filing reports that I was dumping sewage into the watershed, sending Inspector Vance back out to my property. He looked exhausted, telling me, "She's filed 6 bogus reports against different owners this year. She's weaponizing the department." And he gave me a tip. Filing false reports is a crime. Keep recording. Then came the night that changed everything. The night she called the cops on me. The night I described at the start, where the officers realized they had been played. After the cops left, leaving Victoria looking like a ghost on the side of the road, I didn't just get mad. I got curious. My neighbor, Dave the Wrench Henderson, a mechanic whose wife keeps the books for half the county, called me up and said, "Mace, my wife saw something in the tax records you need to see. It's about your HOA queen." I sat down with Martha, a CPA who operates out of a cramped office smelling of toner and stale donuts, and she slid a stack of papers across the desk that made the room spin. "Victoria Sterling," she said, tapping the paper with a manicured nail, "has been claiming a recreational easement deduction on your property for 5 years. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't just harassing me for fun. She was telling the IRS and the county that she owned rights to my land, slashing her property taxes by $3,200 a year, effectively stealing $16,000 from the taxpayers by claiming she owned a piece of my ranch. But it got worse, way worse, because Martha had gone full forensic archaeologist on the public records. Victoria had pulled this scam on the Henderson farm, the fishing spot at Silver Creek, and the hiking trails on the ridge. She was claiming deductions on 7 different properties she didn't own, stealing over $73,000 in fraudulent tax breaks. And the kicker? The reason she got away with it? Her husband, Richard Sterling, worked for the county assessor's office, the exact department that approves these deductions. It was a 2-person mafia, a husband and wife crime spree operating from inside the government, rubber-stamping their own fraud while rejecting legitimate claims from honest people. I took all this evidence to attorney Evelyn Stone, a woman who specializes in government corruption and looks like she eats sharks for breakfast. She laid out the documents on her mahogany desk and smiled a smile that was terrifyingly beautiful, whispering, "Mr. Albright, this isn't just fraud. This is RICO. This is racketeering. We are going to bury them." We formed a coalition, the Property Rights Defense League, gathered around my kitchen table, me, Dave, a retired Army sergeant named Bill, and a teacher named Maria, all victims of Victoria's reign of terror. We pooled our evidence, we hired a forensic accountant, and we prepared for war. Meanwhile, Victoria, sensing she was losing control, filed a restraining order against me claiming I was stalking her children and brandishing assault weapons, a work of fiction so elaborate it belonged on the bestseller list. She got a temporary emergency order that barred me from my own land for 72 hours, and she used that weekend to throw a massive victory party on my lake, destroying the vegetation I had nursed for 3 years. But here's the thing about idiots. They forget about technology. My trail cameras were still rolling, capturing 4K footage of the trespassing, the vandalism, the littering. And then, she staged a 911 call, standing at my property line, screaming that I was threatening her right now, terrified for her life. The timestamp on the recording? It matched a receipt I had from a Home Depot 30 miles away, where I was buying lumber and chatting with the cashier. She had handed us a federal case for perjury, false police reports, and witness tampering on a silver platter, wrapped in a bow of pure stupidity. We didn't just want to win. We wanted to nuke the entire corrupt system from orbit, so we brought in Chloe Bennett, an investigative journalist who has toppled state senators. When she saw the tax fraud documents, the emails between Victoria and Richard coordinating the theft, and the video of the staged 911 call, her eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. She ran a 3-part expose on Channel 7, The Clipboard Tyranny, airing the footage of Victoria breaking my fence and admitting to the conspiracy on audio, and by Thursday, the entire county was glued to their TVs. Victoria, desperate and unraveling like a cheap sweater, decided to hold a community defense rally at the Cedar Creek Clubhouse, claiming my coalition was a domestic terrorist cell funded by radical militias. It was insanity. She stood there in front of 60 terrified suburbanites, ranting about how we were trying to overthrow local government, projecting her own crimes onto us. But she didn't know that Maria, the teacher from our coalition, was sitting in the back row, live streaming the whole fascist pep rally to Facebook, capturing Victoria explicitly instructing her minions to overwhelm them with complaints and bragging. "My husband Richard will bury their permits. We control this town." That admission was the final nail. The following Tuesday, the county commissioners' meeting turned into the Super Bowl of local justice. The room was packed with 400 people, news crews were jockeying for position, and the tension was so thick you could choke on it. Victoria marched to the podium, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he regretted every life choice that led him there, and started her "I am the victim" speech, crying about how outside agitators were destroying their way of life. Then attorney Evelyn Stone stood up. She didn't shout, she didn't scream, she just connected her laptop to the projector and played the greatest hits, the tax fraud spreadsheets, the video of Victoria cutting my lock, and finally, the audio of her bragging about Richard's corruption. The silence in that room was heavy, absolute, and devastating. Commissioner Holloway, a woman who had seen enough, slammed her gavel down, and said, "Based on federal investigation findings, we are referring this immediately for prosecution." The doors swung open and in walked the sheriff, not to escort Victoria out, but to arrest her. The sound of those handcuffs clicking shut, click, click, was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard, sweeter than any symphony. She screamed, "You can't do this. I'm a community leader." While simultaneously, across town, federal agents were raiding Richard's office, seizing computers that documented 5 years of systematic theft. They were charged under RICO statutes, facing 20 years for racketeering, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. 6 months later, the dust settled. Victoria took a plea deal for 12 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay back $480,000 in restitution. Richard got 8 years. The Cedar Creek HOA was dissolved, its assets liquidated to pay back the homeowners they had been ripping off. But the real victory wasn't the money or the prison sentences. It was the morning I woke up, walked out to my porch with a cup of coffee, and heard nothing but the wind in the pines and the splash of a trout. I turned the property into the Eleanor Albright Memorial Nature Center. Now, instead of entitled Trespassers, I host elementary school field trips where kids learn about water ecology and, most importantly, the Constitution and property rights. I see Eleanor in every kid who catches their first fish, in every moment of peace that returns to this valley. I realized that fighting back didn't just save my land. It saved me from the grief that was eating me alive. But here is the question that keeps me up at night, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comments. Did Victoria start out evil, or did the tiny amount of power an HOA gives you inevitably corrupt her? At what point does protecting the neighborhood cross the line into fascism, and why do we let these petty tyrants run our lives for so long before we stand up? Drop your worst HOA horror stories below. Let's get a discussion going. And remember, document everything, because the truth is the only weapon that never runs out of ammo. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next update, where I tell you how Dave the Wrench sued the city and won. Stay free, guys.